So at my gig last night, I was a bit disappointed with the sound. I used an HX Stomp going into a Yorkville NX10C speaker wedge, and I wasn't too happy with the sound. Now, the venue, had a lot of reverberation to it, not a lot of sound absorbing things there, very bright sounding room. I did use the global EQ on the HX Stomp, but I had to really, take a couple of minutes and listen and really dial down a lot of the high frequencies. I think I almost cut like 7.5 dBs at about somewhere around the 6K or so mark. Those specifics don't really matter. The point is I had to do some major adjusting on things, and I wasn't too happy about it. And overall, the sound, well, it wasn't as great as what I'm going to show you is my favorite setup, and that's the HX Stomp effects, going into my 2001 Fender Hot Rod Deluxe amp. So I kind of have a hybrid of a real analog tube and digital setup, and it sounds great. It works great. It's still almost as compact, but it's what I'm trying to do is cut down the weight of the rig and some of the size. Now, if I go with an FR, okay, it's going to be the size of basically the Hot Rod Deluxe, but the weight might be a little less because the Hot Rod Deluxe is about 45 pounds. The wedge I used last night was 27 pounds. So it was a nice trip to the car, I must say. Well, one, it wasn't too heavy. I mean, it's heavy enough carrying a bag of gear in one hand and the speaker in another and a guitar on my back. But it wasn't agonizing, and like I said, one quick trip to the car. But it was about the sound, people. The sound was not as great as I wanted. Now, would a Helix have done better? Maybe not. And there's something to be said with the speaker. I mean, I had it set the speaker itself to a flat EQ setting, but it's still a PA speaker. It's not an FR. Is there a difference? I'm sure there is. I'm not going to get into that right now. But I have done a gig. This past summer, actually, I used the Sonic Cake Matrobox 1, the original one, and I ran that into a different Yorkville, I think a 10-inch PA speaker, a newer one, and it sounded really good. So the capability and possibilities are there. So I'm kind of back to the drawing board. I even thought for a moment of like, hey, maybe I should put a pedal board, get that going again, because I grew up with pedals. I love pedals, but I'm really, really liking the convenience of the Line 6 HX Stomp. And even if I got, say, a Helix, it's okay, it's the size of a pedal board, but the capabilities of all the different amps and cabs and sounds you can get out of it. Now, that's the problem, though. If I'm going to go with my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, I'm going to be using that. That's my amp and cab, so I will have an amp and cab sim signal, and that's another good thing about the HX Stomp, a split signal. I can put that into my send, and that can go to our front of house, our PA mix. So there is use for that. But as far as presets, it's really just going to be effects. So I kind of really am stuck right now at the moment of which direction do I want to go? Because it's really nice to have the thought of having like a Helix Floor or even the LT, and having all these capabilities of effect switching, but not only that, having, in one preset, you could have two different amps and two different cab setups to switch, almost like an Eric Johnson having a Fender setup and a Marshall setup. He has a Fender Twin setup for his cleans, and then he switches to the Marshalls for the leads. You can have that kind of stuff. Even in the Stomp, you can do it to a degree. Definitely not with a Podgo. And that's what I kind of want. Is if I'm going to have one of these, Line 6 units, I want to use the amp and cab sims to full capability, but I want it to sound good. So yeah, I'm back to the drawing board. But let's check out. I'll play it in my studio here, and I'll keep it at a low bedroom volume, so it doesn't have to blast everything. But you can hear the HX Stomp going into my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, and then I'll also have the send going into my computer, going to the Logic Pro, so you can hear it out of my studio monitors. Okay, so let's check that out. So this is the setup that works for me sound-wise the best, but it's not really ideally what I'm after as far as making it lightweight and compact. Now, mind you, if I go with an FR, it's probably going to be relatively the same ballpark as my Fender Hot Rod Deluxe. But let's hear how it sounds. So here's just the Hot Rod Deluxe at a really tiny bedroom volume. Hopefully you can hear this. Okay, so that is the left main out going into the amp, and now I have the send. I'm going into my interface into Logic Pro, so let's hear that through studio monitors. So we'll turn off the volume. Actually, sorry, we don't need to do that. My bad. We'll leave that. We're going to put the amp on standby. And now, okay, so this is just going to be the studio monitors. Let's do a little more. Yeah, so this is just the start of my amp and cab mod that's going to go to front of house. So I still have to tweak it because it's a little dark sounding. I'm out of blocks, really. So I think I can just get a nice amp sound, and I might not use the current amp that I'm using. I forget which one I even have right now. If it's like I think it's a Vox AC30 that I'm going through, but I'll find the one that works. And yeah, so it's still having this setup will make it somewhat compact because this is going to be my main board. It's going to be the HX Stomp with a dual foot switch, so that hasn't changed. And again, it's the size of this, the amp relative to the small Yorkville NX10C wedge I was using. Not a huge difference, but definitely in weight. So there's almost a 20-pound weight difference. So that's, to me, is a big thing on my list. So we're still working on this rig. But that just gives you an idea of what you can do, because the reason I want to do this setup is because my band, my country rock trio, Dirt Road Highway, the guys like to have everything going through the PA. So we want it all mic'd, so you can keep stage volume at a reasonable level. And it'll have monitor feeds, especially for our drummer, who's our lead singer. So he wants to hear everything, and that's great. So this is where something like this comes in handy. I mean, because if I have a pedal board, I could get something like, which I have, is the Boss Amp and Cab IR2 pedal, so that's great. But now I'm getting back into a pedal board territory. Even though the sounds are great, I think the sounds are great here too. And I'm really happy with actually this particular preset. With the effects that are going into my Hot Rod Deluxe, I think they sound really, really good. So if you want to look at this preset in more depth, you know what? Maybe we will do a video on that. Yeah, so let's get some final thoughts on this. All right, so my final thought on this for now, I don't think I want to go to build a pedal board. I mean, I'm keeping my pedals. I mean, I still love analog pedals, and there'll probably be a time where I'm going to want to go back to them. But I am going to go through my analog pedals again. I've been doing it for the last year or so and selling some. I think I'm just going to keep some essentials. It's tough, right, to make some hard decisions. Like, we all have that pedal drawer with lots of pedals that we haven't touched in ages, but we're just afraid to get rid of them. But I think it's time to do another deep dive into that and get rid of some, but keep some. But I think what I want to do is continue going digital, because I like the capabilities, the tonal capabilities, because with an analog pedal board, yes, you can have plenty of tonal capabilities, but you're still having that one amp, that one cab. Okay. So there are some limitations, but it's that question of the verses, like the analog world versus the digital sounds. It's like they're getting so close these days. To me, 5 years ago, I would say no effing way. There's no way I'm going to go digital. But now, with the right setup, it's great. I think it's great. I think it sounds great. So I'm not going to give up. I was discouraged from at last night's gig, but like I said earlier, I have done a gig with an all digital setup this past summer using different, same thing, a PA speaker and a different modeler, and I liked how it sounded. It sounded pretty good to me. So there is capabilities there. So it just maybe this pairing of last night was not meant to be, right? So FR, I might look into that. I have had a Line 6 power cab, But this Fender, what the Tone Master FR12 has got my interest. What do you think about it? What do you think about what's your favorite FR if you go that way? Now I've had don't drop comments about the Headrush 108, 112. I've had them. Yeah, they're fine. And I've had the Power Cab, just the 112, not the 112 plus, and they were, they worked just fine. But I still felt, well, definitely with the Headrush 108 at a gig, I was pushing it. It wasn't loud enough stage volume to me. But I'm hearing good things about this Fender Tone Master FR12, like how real it is, and I like the simplicity on the dials. From what I see, is like you have control for volume, treble, mid, bass, which is what I want. A quicker way to do it than having to dive into a menu like I did last night to tweak EQ. Okay, so, but what do you think? Should I go back to an amp and analog pedals, or keep going? Should I get the Helix? I know I've asked that in my last video. Maybe I should get a Helix floor or LT. I mean, scribble strips. I know there's probably some differences between the LT and the floor. But how big are they? Does it matter? Is it worth the $500-$600? I don't know. I know that a Helix LT is probably going to give me a little more signal path. Well, I know it will, because I have had a Helix LT. I know it's going to give me more signal path options. But what do I really need for my bar band? And sometimes I'll play Legions, and even a theater gig I could do with this setup with the HX Stomp, really, depending on the gig, right? But yeah, I want to keep it compact, and I realize, okay, and again, FR, like the Power Cab or the Fender Tone Master FR12, about the size of, looks like it's going to be about the same size as like one of these Fender amps, Hot Rod Deluxe or Deluxe Reverb, blah, blah, blah. But it's the weight. That's also, it's compact and weight are two big things for me these days. And last night, as I said, that 27-pound Yorkville wedge was great. That was great in that regards to carry it a block away to my car, and it was wasn't too much effort at all. It was great. So there's that. Anyways, guys, appreciate you watching. Just let me know your thoughts on this whole topic. Okay, this is a fun little journey, as always, our Tone Quest, and let's not forget to keep playing. We'll have our road bumps in that, but let's keep playing though. And that's what I did. I played through last night, and there were some good moments. Once I dialed in some things, it was okay. But there's been better, but I've had worse. All right, guys. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. Check out this next video.